Test review. We don't do these very often in English simply because with a reading test, it's more about applying the skills and upping your comprehension than it usually is about test questions. However, because we do have a STAR test this year, most of our questions are actually based on STAR-like questions. So all of your questions on the next test are going to be really similar to the ones we're looking at right now. I just want to show you guys what these guys are really asking and what to think about. So some of our TEKs going into this are 8.7a, B, and C. 8.7a is the big TEK we're working on right now, which says students need to analyze how themes are developed through the interaction of characters and events. So characters can reveal a theme by saying out loud what they think, or by certain actions that they do in response to things. Events can reveal a theme based on how the characters handle those events. So technically, it all comes back down to characters. Also, we've been talking about how places can shape who we are. Well, just like places can help shape our identity, the setting that something takes place in can really influence the values and beliefs of the characters. So a character that lives in 17th century France is going to be very different than a teenage girl that lives in the modern day, like 2020 COVID era, right? So basically, I know you guys know this, but we're looking at how and analyzing how. Okay, so for our story, for example, this entire time, we are going to use the story of the Telltale Heart. Every now and then, I might throw in some Book of Unknown Americans. If you guys have not yet read the Telltale Heart, go find the story on YouTube, watch it and listen to it so you know what I'm talking about when I do this. All right, here we go. So all of these are sample questions that you guys might see on STAR and that you'll see on your next test that's coming up, like, I think tomorrow. Okay, here we go. At what point in the excerpt do we realize how the narrator will resolve the conflict? So an excerpt is basically just like a passage, right? So we want to know in this question, the conflict is the problem. We want to know at what point in the story do we figure out that our character is going to be okay? Our character is going to be able to actually solve the problem. So in the Telltale Heart, the problem is the old man's eye. And actually, we realize how he's going to solve the problem at the very beginning, because the narrator tells us that I was never kinder to the old man during the entire week before I killed him. So we know he's going to resolve his conflict by murdering the old man. We don't know exactly how it's going to go down, so we have to wait to see him stalking him every night and then leaping into the room. But we realize that fairly early on. Number 2. What does the narrator's explanation in paragraph 2 reveal to the reader? So when you see a question like this, remember the narrator is the person telling the story. So you want to go find that paragraph after you've read the whole thing. Please, for the love of God, read the whole thing. It's really hard in 8th grade to do well on tests when you don't read the full story and get like the big picture, because a lot of your questions are about big picture. So to figure out what the narrator is explaining, you got to have context, which means you're going to have to read paragraph 3 and paragraph 1 and understand what 2 is actually revealing. This is an inferencing question. It's asking you to read between the lines and figure out what's actually being shown. Number 3, the author builds tension at the beginning of the excerpt by, we've been talking about tension, right? Tension and suspense is that feeling of like growing dread or excitement as you're reading something. So that's going to be different for every story. So in the Telltale Heart, the author builds tension at the very beginning of the excerpt, basically by telling us that he's going to kill the old man and slowly hinting that things are going to go very, very wrong, and even layering some fear in there. In the Book of Unknown Americans, the type of tension we see is very different. Right at the beginning, the tension starts building when they talk about the bullies giving our narrator a hard time about going back to where he came from through the canal. So both of those are building tension. Question 4. Which event initiates the rising action of the excerpt? Now that question sounds really creepy, but creepy. It's because I'm thinking of Telltale Heart, but that question sounds really difficult, but it's not. So, oh, that's my last one. Sorry, guys. So the rising action has a specific spot on the plot diagram that we looked at last week. And it happens to be, let's see if I can get a big picture for us. So it happens to be on the way up, right? The exposition is like the setting. Rising action is where the tension and suspense are building because of the conflict. Then finally things get really exciting right before the end, and then we're able to kind of start calming down and resolve everything in the resolution. So rising action is going to begin with something we call an inciting incident. So on our plot diagram, the inciting incident happens right at the moment where we go from exposition to the climax. This one's okay. This one's right here. I like this one better. So inciting incident is going to be the moment that the rising action starts. It initiates. So there's going to be something that happens in the beginning and things are going to kind of like go down. So the rising action of the excerpt, the Book of Unknown Americans, in the beginning, he tells us all about identity, his dad, the bullies, American citizenship. And then we start seeing that the problem is they want to go back to Panama. The conflict is that they want to return to Panama. So the event that initiates or starts the rising action of this passage is going to be when the dad decides to go back to Panama for the high school reunion. In the Telltale Heart, the rising action is going to be the moment our narrator decides to kill the old man and lets us in on a secret, starts stalking him every night. But it'd be the moment he made that decision and told us. Read this sentence from paragraph 19. Villains, I shrieked, dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here, it is the beating of his hideous heart. So famously, this is the last line from the Telltale Heart. And what you'll be asking in a question like this is you'll be given a quote by the character, and then you're going to be asked what it actually means. To be able to get this question right, friends, you will have had to have read the entire story. You need to know who the character is, what that character wants, did they get it, what stood in their way. So to be able to figure the answer to this question out, you have to have read the whole story. So this is from Telltale Heart, which we've done. So we want to know, what are his actions in this sentence? Well, the actions are that he's shrieking at the police, he's tearing up the planks, and he's revealing himself. He's literally like ratting himself out. So the actions in this sentence best demonstrate his insanity. He's off his rocker, right? He gave himself away. You guys see this one all the time. I don't need to dwell on this. Read this dictionary entry. Which definition most closely matches the way the word nice is used, or vexed, whichever, it's supposed to say vexed, is used in paragraph 4. So the thing is, you might know that nice normally means pleasant, but sometimes it can mean something like fulfilling. So to know which definition it is, make sure you read that word in context in that paragraph. Number 7, the sensory language in paragraph 12 helps the reader understand the main character. So for this one, you need to know sensory language. 5 senses. If the character is talking about something they hear, smell, taste, touch, or feel, then that's sensory language. 5 senses, sensory language. So sensory language can help us understand a whole lot of things. It can help us understand what the character feels about something, or thinks about something, or how they're perceiving something. Number 8. For the narrator, the beating of the dead man's heart most likely represents. So this is another inferencing question where you kind of have to read between the lines and you have to have read the whole story. So they're going to give you something that's kind of symbolic and say, to this person, this symbol means. So for the narrator, the beating of the dead man's heart. So if you remember in the story, he keeps hearing the heart beating through the floorboards while the police are trying to talk to him. So it mostly likely represents either his own guilt because he killed the old man because of his eye, or again represents his insanity. So it's a little bit of a tougher question because it has to do with symbols, but y'all can do this. Number 9, what is the best summary of the excerpt? Friends, to have a summary, you need to have a beginning, a middle, an end, and the big picture. I wish I'd put that in there with the big picture, but you've got to have all those things. If your summary does not say what happens in the beginning, the middle, and the end, it has a statement about the big picture, you can forget it. It's not a good summary. Don't get caught up in the details. Number 10, the final sentence of the excerpt suggests that the narrator most likely feels, hey, there we are again. We're given a sentence like this, and then we want to know what that says about how the character is feeling. Unfortunately, characters don't just come out and say, I'm feeling sad today. I'm feeling angry today. You got to see what they do. Look at their actions to figure out how they feel, or look at their dialogue, what they say to other people. Number 11, they'll give you a sentence, like read the sentence from paragraph 18. It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. So that's very figurative language. Figurative language is great at describing things, similes and metaphors, comparing things to each other. We like figurative language because it helps us sort of get a better handle on what somebody's talking to and put us in the moment. We wouldn't just say, the heart thumped very fast. We want people to be involved in that experience. So I want to know, same thing, what does this language convey or show us about the narrator? So you could say the narrator is hearing something that doesn't exist. The narrator's feeling guilty because he can hear the heart. The narrator is going crazy because he can hear the heart and there's no way he can actually hear that. Let's see, we got two more, or four more. So number 12, based on the character's conversation with another character in paragraph 3 through 7, the reader can conclude that exact same question again, but this time they want you to look at a conversation between two characters. So instead of just looking at what the character does, you want to look at what the character says to this other character. And you got to be able to conclude what that means. Number 13, the narrator's response to the other character's demands adds to the conflict by, okay, characters don't exist in an isolation bubble. They interact with each other. Sometimes they fall in love, and sometimes they get closer, sometimes they get farther apart. Sometimes they just out and out fight. So this question is asking you about interactions between the narrator and another character. So two characters going at it. When one character places demand on another one, that's going to create conflict, right? So this question is going to be specific to the actual story, but know that stories are very much made up of the interaction of characters, not just the events that happen, but the characters that are in them. Number 14, the first person view allows the author to. So when we are looking at point of view, so a little bit of a review here, there's first person, second person, and third person. There's two types of third person. Third person is limited and omniscient. So when we use first person, that's the narrator is the one that's talking. So you'd say, I went to the grocery store today. I got in a fight. My juice was spilled everywhere. And yeah. So first person is really cool to answer this question because it allows us to get in that character's head. We are thinking and feeling right along with that character in real time. Other points of view, like second person, that's when you want to bring the audience in. So if I said, have you ever had a day where you want to fall asleep in class? I'm trying to bring the audience in and relate to them. Third person distances the audience, but it's really good storytelling language. So that would be like, Sheila went to the grocery store to get some ice cream. She thought it was delicious. She ate it before she got through the checkout line. So that's third person, and it distances us. So if you have a story told in first person, we love that because that allows the author to really show what that character is feeling, and it allows the readers to get into their head. Last one, thank you guys for putting up with this. Which sentence of the excerpt best illustrates the character's conflict? Guys, you cannot answer this one unless you've read the full thing. You have to know what the character's problem is. You have to know what the character's conflict actually is to answer this. So they're going to give you a variety of sentences, and one of those sentences will hopefully be really obvious, like, oh yeah, that's totally yours, or that's totally our narrator's conflict. It should stand out. The statement should be exactly what they're having trouble with. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Good luck on your test that's coming up soon. See you later.